Good evening and welcome to the Town of Clinton Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. Tonight's meeting has been convened in accordance with the Governor's March 13th, 2020 Executive Order 202.1 as extended, which suspends certain provisions of the Open Meetings Law to allow ZBA, the Town of Clinton ZBA, to convene a meeting via video conferencing. In accordance with this executive order, the public has been provided with the ability to view tonight's ZBA meeting via YouTube. Anything else? I think I always ask that. Is it just YouTube?
Just YouTube.
Good.
Unless it's a public hearing and we invite everybody in.
YouTube. A link to the town's YouTube channel has been provided in the meeting's notice, and a transcription will be provided at a later date. So welcome to those of you who are here. Again, my name is Joseph Malcarney. I'm going to introduce everyone that's on the Zoning Board of Appeals. So when you hear your name, just kind of raise your hand, flop it around, do whatever you want to so you know who you are. So John Calogero, Charles Canham, Norma Dolan, Ron Mostello, Arthur Weiland, and Russell Tompkins. So this is the crew that we have, and we're grateful that those of you who are joining us are joining us. We ask that while you're not speaking, that you keep your Zoom muted so that we don't hear all of the background noise. And Arlene, all adjoining property owners have been notified?
Yes.
Maybe. And all fees paid?
Just need the publication fees, the legal ads.
Okay, all right. So the agenda for this evening, we have area variance applications for, is that pronounced Forsler? You have that? Okay, and Dempsey. So we will start with the Forsler area variance. So who is here representing that?
I'm Steve Forsler, I'm here.
Oh, hey Steve, welcome. Would you be so kind as to explain why you are coming before the Zoning Board of Appeals?
Well, we have a desire to construct a 24 by 24 detached garage. Given the current location of the driveway and the grade of the property, I think the area that it makes the most sense to place this new structure is too close to the property line to the west of our house, as you can see on the, it's an odd piece of property, but that 16 feet certainly doesn't make the offset requirement.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Norma, or maybe, is there anyone that will recuse themselves for this particular application? Russell?
And I believe Art said.
Is that correct? Arthur and Russell. Both of you recusing yourself from this application?
Yeah, that's correct. I might make some public comments, but Steve and I are both commissioners in the East Clinton Fire District, and to avoid any question of partiality, I will not vote on it.
Okay.
I'm serving on a committee at the moment that has financial concerns. So I think just to keep things a little clearer, if I also recused.
Okay, thank you both. Norma, if you could take things over from here.
Okay, everybody understand my speakers are, I don't know, not the best. I'm going to read the planning board motion then.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is dated the November 18th, and I'm going to cut to the chase on a few of the numbers. It's addressed to Mr. and Mrs. Forschler at the Town of Clinton Planning Board meeting held on November 17th regarding the application. The following motion was made. Mr. Dolan, Mr. Dolan, move that the planning board approve the following resolution. Be it resolved, the planning board is making a positive recommendation for approval to the Town of Clinton Zoning Board of Appeals on the requested area variance to section 250-23 for a side yard setback reduction to 16 feet for a 24 by 24 detached garage from the required 50-foot for property owned by Stephen and Beth Forschler and located at 85 Maple Lane, tax grid number ending in 678862 in the AR5 zone. And you all know some of this will be repeated in my motion. Whereas the applicant wishes to construct a 24 by 24 foot garage within the 50-foot yard setback made necessary by the location of the driveway and the grade of the property, preventing an increase in the side yard setback to more than 16 feet. The applicant is seeking a variance from section 250-23 as stated above. This is a 0.99 acre site located in the AR5 zoning district. The property is not located within a ridgeline scenic historic preservation overlay district. The lot is not in an ag district or a CEA. It is noted that an area variance is a type 2 action under seeker and requires no further action. The site is on a Clinton historic road, that being Maple Lane, and must conform to local law number 3 of 2001. That needs to go in my motion. I missed that one. The site does not contain a New York State DEC wetland. With this lot line reduction, an undesirable change will not be produced in the character of the neighborhood or be a detriment to nearby properties, as similar situations exist on nearby properties, and existing vegetation barriers and distance of neighbors' primary dwellings will minimize impact. Benefits sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by any other feasible method. The requested area variance is substantial. There will be no potential adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood. The alleged difficulty is self-created. The application fees have been paid. Per the zoning enforcement officer, there are no known violations associated with this property. A consent form signed by the owners is on file with the building and zoning clerk. The planning board has received a letter of support by Robin Novak, who shares the property line with the Forschlers, which is the subject to this variance. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the planning board gives positive recommendation for approval to the Town of Clinton Zoning Board of Appeals, seconded by Mr. Auspitz. All aye, motion carried 7-0. Just had to add one little thing to my motion that I had left out.
Okay. Do you have any further comments or discussions on that?
I don't. It's very straightforward.
I agree. Any other comments from the board?
I think that the only person even vaguely affected here would be the Novaks. And that letter of support says everything I need to know.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, and while this is an AR5 district, it's actually a neighborhood with the great number of pre-existing non-conforming, fairly small lots. So it's certainly not out of character to have small lots in this area. This is the neighborhood I live in, and So their area variances are quite commonly required to do pretty much anything on the property.
They are, yeah.
Not that it has any bearing upon the outcome, but I was impressed by the paperwork. I thought that this was very well prepared and very covered everything you need, and like I say, well put together. So it was very easy to follow and make sense out of it.
Great. I'd like to make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So
Aye.
moved. Any comments from the public at this time?
Is
And
there?
if you have comments, just speak up.
I don't think we have anybody.
What was that, Arlene?
We don't have anybody.
Okay. All right, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So
Aye.
moved. Any further discussion from the members of the zoning board? Okay, Norma, your motion.
My motion, and it's going to be very repetitive to the planning board motion, as they usually are. Okay, and I always put this note at the top of my motions that, and Russ, I know you're new at this, so I just wanted to leave it in here. All motions are always done in the positive. It's the voting that determines the outcome. I hereby motion to approve the area variance to section 250-23, and I added in parentheses here referencing 250-22 attachment 2 for a side yard setback reduction from the required 50 feet to 16 feet for a 24 by 24 detached garage for a 0.99 acre property in an AR5 zone owned by Stephen and Beth Forschler and located at 85 Maple Lane, tax grid number ending in 678862, although it's spelled out in the motion. The applicant wishes to construct the garage within the side yard setback, which is made necessary by the location of the driveway and the grade of the property. An undesirable change will not be brought about in the neighborhood and is consistent with other surrounding properties. Existing vegetation barriers and distance of the neighbor's primary dwelling minimize any impact. Excuse me. The Town of Clinton Planning Board gave a positive recommendation. I have to have a little glass of water. Hang on. Eat on in the house, you know, kind of thing. The next bullet, the benefits sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some other feasible method besides granting the variance. Excuse me, I am sorry. The alleged hardship was self-created. The requested variance is substantial. A residential area variance is a type 2 action under seeker and requires no further action. The site does not contain a New York State DEC wetland. The site is not in an ag district, and a residential area variance does not require an ag data statement. The site is not in a CEA, which is critical environmental area. The site is on a Clinton Scenic Historic Road, that being Maple Lane, and must conform to local law number 3 of 2001, which it does. The site is not an original scenic or historic protection overlay district. Per the zoning enforcement officer, there are no outstanding zoning violations. A letter of support from the adjoining neighbor, Robin Novak, has been received. The applicants have stated they are removing 2 small sheds immediately behind the proposed location of the garage. I do want to point out that the removal of these is not a condition for obtaining the building permit for the garage. And last but not least, all fees have been paid.
Second for discussion. Thank you, Charles. So further discussion from the zoning board.
Well, this is Russ here. I think that this is a perfectly legitimate proposal by the owners of the property, and I see it causing no harm, and I think it, like I say, is an advantage to them and with no disadvantage to anybody else.
Okay, thank you. Any comments about the motion?
Nope.
All right.
Very well crafted.
Good job, Nona. I will read off the names of the zoning board members. An aye vote is in favor of granting the area variance, and a nay vote is in opposition to granting the area variance. John Calogero,
Aye.
Charles Cannon,
Aye.
Norma Dolan,
Aye.
Ron Mostello,
Aye.
and I. So your conditional area variance has been granted. Congratulations. You can talk with Arlene about the details of that, and she can help you with any questions that you may have.
All right, so the next step is just to talk to Arlene.
Yes, that's correct.
All right, anything else?
No, that's it.
All right, thank you much.
Yeah, you bet.
Have a good night.
You too.
Night. Thank you.
I'm gonna
Thank
sign off.
Okay, we are moving along to the Dempsey area variance. And Mr. Calogero has this one. But let's see, who, let me just see.
No, Ron, let's
No,
start.
Ron has it.
Ron does? Oh, right. Mr. Calogero will recuse himself for this.
That is correct. I would
There
like the opportunity to make some comments, but I will not participate in the vote.
Okay, thank you very much, John. Okay, so Ron does, but let me just take a look at what I have here. So it's Kenneth and Christine, is that correct? Yeah, if you could explain to the board why you were coming before the zoning board and what we can do for you.
I want to put a shed, a 12 by 20 shed on my property. Presently, a little over 13 acres, and there isn't any outbuildings on this property right now. I pretty much have everything jammed into my garage as far as lawn tractors and whatnot. I do have some sloping areas and some, you look at my, paperwork right there, okay. You can see that in the back here, there's wetlands in one area. I didn't really get involved in that, but I would have to put the shed way in the back because I have a fenced-in area behind my house, and that's not going to work for me. On the right side of my property, or the east side, it's sloping, and this area that it's in right now is wooded. It's not that far from the house or the driveway. It's kind of in the woods, so you can't see it. I actually included some photos I sent earlier.
I got it.
If you wanted to see it, I think Ron came out and looked at it. It's kind of in a secluded area. It's far from the road, as you can see. And what it's going to do, it's going to be one of those cottage sheds that houses a couple of lawn tractors, some big leaf pickup machines, and everything else that's jammed into my garage right now. So that's what it will be. And that's my driveway. I have a big circular driveway. That's a trail that's pre-existing. That goes up to the site where it is. If you go up about 50, the next slide, I think you might be able to see the site, Jot. It's a wooded area, secluded. I really don't have to do anything but just clear away some brush, and that's it. Maybe you can see the photo. You could, there's images coming up, or can you guys see them? I haven't seen anything but the first one.
Yeah, we haven't quite seen it yet.
Okay.
While you're pulling that up, Arlene, and thank you very much. Ron, if you want to.
Okay, that's actually going up to the site. The site is right behind those two trees. That's the site. And the next slide will show that area.
Hold on, it's,
You have it there, Arlene?
I mean, pulling a picture, I mean, because you send it to me as an attachment. It's not like one attachment.
Yeah, I could see. Yeah, I could see. You have to open up each individual one.
Sorry.
That's okay.
But if you send it to me as one attachment, I could, keep on-
Yeah,
Can you see this now with the
yeah,
head?
that's the actual site. And that's my house down on the bottom left. So you can see it's a little bit in front of the house, but it's up in the woods. It's all pine trees around it, so it's quite secluded. So, and then I think there's another slide of just the site itself. I think it's the one before that. The one,
Yeah, there were 4
second to the
pictures.
last one. Yeah, maybe it's that one.
This one?
Yeah, I think it might be that one. And the numbers.
This one? You sent me 4 pictures.
Yeah, no, that's the trail going up to it, so. But,
Which picture are we looking for?
yeah, they all kind of look alike to you guys.
Yes.
Just hit this one, let's see what happens.
Is this the one you're looking for?
Yeah, that's the actual site. That's where it's gonna sit. Right there, in that flat area there.
Okay. All right. Thank you for the explanation and for the pictures, Arlene. Ron, take it away.
I think between those photos and that explanation, my work is done here, so. I'll start with the letter from the planning board addressed to Mr. and Mrs. Dempsey. At the Town of Clinton Planning Board meeting held on November 17th, 2020 regarding the above subject application, the following motion was made. Mr. Carroll motioned that the planning board approve the following resolution. Be it resolved that the Town of Clinton Planning Board is making a positive recommendation to the Zoning Board of Appeals on the requested variance to section 250-22A3 regarding accessory structures located closer to the fronting street than the principal building, as requested by Kenneth and Christine Dempsey on property located at 1074 Bulls Head Road, Clinton Corners, specific tax grid number 122449 in an AR5 zoning district. Whereas the planning board notes that section 250-22A3 restricts the location of the accessory structures, A, closer to the front street than the principal building, or B, within the front yard setback, whichever is less restrictive. Excuse me. In this case, since the 100-foot yard setback is the least restrictive metric, and the accessory structure will be located 346 feet from the front of the property, the planning board does not believe a variance is required. To the extent a variance is required, however, the planning board makes the findings set forth below. The applicant is requesting a variance to permit the construction of a 12 by 20 foot shed in a location that is closer to the fronting road than the principal structure on a 13.1 acre lot. The property is in an AR5 zoning district. The property is within the Ridgeline Scenic and Historic Protection Overlay District. The property is not in a critical environmental area. The variance requested is not substantial, as the structure will be located to the side of and only a little in front of the house, and will be obstructed from views. An undesirable change will not be produced in the character of the neighborhood or be detrimental to nearby properties, as the accessory structure will not be visible from the road or neighboring properties. The proposed location will not result in any significant disturbance to the environment, and the benefits sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some other method. The proposed variance should not have an adverse effect or impact on the physical and environmental conditions of the neighborhood. The alleged difficulty is self-created, but should not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the planning board is making a positive recommendation for the approval of this requested variance to the Town of Clinton Zoning Board of Appeals. Seconded by Mr. Thomas. All aye, motion carried 7-0. Just a couple of comments. Mr. Dempsey, I think, did a great job of explaining the situation. He was kind enough to meet with me on Monday of this week in that heavy rain and stand outside with me to review the site and the placement. The site they've chosen, as you've seen by the pictures, is sort of naturally created. It's a bit of an elevated terrace or plateau, little to no land clearing or vegetation disturbance. in viewing the property, it seems to me to be the most practical and best location. Although it will be forward of the primary residence, which is of course why we're here tonight, it will not be visible from the road or the adjacent side parcels to the east and the west. There are no other structures on the property. This proposed structure will have no plumbing, no electric. And we do have 2 letters of support or in favor from the adjacent property owners as well. That is all I have, unless you have questions for me.
Comments?
Do we have to read the letter from the neighbors, the support?
Do we have a joint? We don't have to read them word for word. We can either summarize them or read them. Either way. Do you have?
Ron,
I have them. One is quite short, so I'll read that. The other is a little bit longer, but I'll touch on that as well. To whom it may concern, within the above agency, is addressed to Town of Clinton Zoning Board. Russell and Stephanie Bonk, residing at 1062 Bulls Head Road in Clinton Corners, adjoining the property of Ken and Christine Dempsey at 1074, expressed no concerns in regard to their construction of a 12 by 20 shed on their parcel closer to the fronting street than the principal building. Mr. and Mrs. Bonk signed that as well and submitted that. The other letter is from Gina Palmer, who I believe is with us tonight. Wrote a very detailed letter in support of this proposed structure by the Dempseys as well.
Are we open for discussion at this time?
Not quite yet, but you certainly can, Russ. For the board members, yes.
I looked over a training thing that I printed off the computer from Division of Local Government Services about Zoning Board of Appeals. And I don't think, I go along with what the planning board said. There's no variance needed here. If you look at the denial from the zoning enforcement officer, he quoted it verbatim, but it says either it cannot be in front of it or it cannot be in the 100-foot setback, whichever is less restrictive. This is obviously not in a 100-foot setback. And in this book here, it says an interpretation. The zoning enabling statutes provide Board of Appeals with the power to hear and decide appeals from and review decisions of the administrative officers responsible for the enforcement of zoning regulations. The statute specifically allowed a board to reverse or affirm wholly or partly or to modify the decisions appealed to. This general statement of the board's appellate jurisdiction allows the board to interpret the municipal zoning regulations. I think all we should be doing is saying there was an error because this does not meet, it does not fail both, it only fails one. And the least restrictive is the 100 feet. So we should be doing an interpretation that the rule of the zoning enforcement officer was an error and no variance is needed in this situation.
Thank you, Russell. Other comments from the board?
Yeah, that's my interpretation as well, that, you know, I read it several times. I had to sort of scratch my head to make sure the either's and the ors and the least restrictive and so forth. But I think Russ is absolutely correct that there is no variance required here. And that, I mean, I don't at all object to making it clear. I mean, it seems a little strange to grant a variance when we don't actually think the law requires it, but we certainly want to make it clear that if that's the decision of the board, that we want it on the record that no variance was required, so there's no question in the future for the applicant.
And any future applications that come similar, because it's very common to have this type of situation, especially with some of the larger parcels that we have in the town. Or we have houses that are close to the road with a structure behind them that are still within the setback, but yet meet the first, number A, which is closer to the front of the street than the principal building. Okay, Arthur, your comments.
I just would think that a motion similar to what Charlie was talking about and Russ talked about, that the board motions that it realizes that this situation doesn't need a variance and regrets the confusion, something so it's on record.
Okay. So again, just kind of taking a look at this from the comments, are there any of the board members that feel that an area variance is needed for this particular application?
May I speak?
Yes, please.
I'm totally in agreement with everything. I just want to clarify something. If a board member would insist that we do an interpretation, the applicant would have to reapply.
Well, again, we can.
We can just say he doesn't need one.
Right. Correct. We can decide if an area variance is needed and/or if additional ones may be needed, depending upon the
Take care of
situation.
the situation as it is now,
Right.
rather than creating another process.
Right. Yes, Charles.
I don't think we have to interpret our statute. I think we may want to, on a similar theme to Norma, we may want to state that we disagree with the procedure that has gone forward with the zoning enforcement officer. But I don't think they needed a variance, or we're not interpreting the law. We're we're amending a judgment of the zoning enforcement officer.
Yeah, it doesn't, I don't think there's any interpretation needed here. It seems to be fairly straightforward. But what other comments?
No, I was just going to agree. I don't see the need for an interpretation. I think we'll go through, to the ZEO that this is the way we view this statute. So.
Joseph, can I say something?
Sure.
Do you remember we have the same one on Silver Lake where the guy went for a variance to put a garage, and then you guys agreed that it doesn't need a variance. You didn't do any interpretation. You just said it doesn't need a variance.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. So it's the same scenario here. I said something to the planning board, but they were like, well, we might as well, because it's like, do they still have to move forward to the ZBA? It doesn't look like it needs a variance. They're like, well, it was referred to us, we might as well and let the ZBA decide.
Right. Well, again, I think that that's appropriate since it was a decision. The decision was made by the zoning enforcement officer, and we are the board that is to help provide the clarification and or interpretations and or variances to the zoning law or what the zoning enforcement officer says. So we want to, again, we have gone through a few of them in recent months. So if we can provide some helpful clarification for this and back to the zoning enforcement officer so he knows, again, how we stand with this particular situation.
May I speak?
Certainly.
Each time we run into this with the front line, we kind of come up with, there've been slightly different scenarios, but it's usually the same situation. And it really is not a big deal at the moment, but whatever we write and find as a result of this hearing, there should be a statement that the Dempseys can lean back on in the event they decide to sell and a buyer finds a discrepancy after a survey and that kind of thing. So looking toward the future, we need a very clear statement, to the effect that no variance was needed, or, I don't think anybody wants to know much about whether the zoning enforcement officer was right or wrong. They just, have to clear their municipals up to get a mortgage, and that should be on file someplace, very easily retrieved without having to go through minutes. There should be something that attaches to their, to their file that would clarify that for them.
Okay. And I think we can do that just with a motion
Mhm.
that essentially states that we can quote the section of the law, whichever is less restrictive, and state that since the shed is farther than 100 feet from the front yard setback, that no area variance is required. And then it can be just very simple, very straightforward.
Right.
Okay, so again, to recap, it is the determination of this zoning board that no area variance is required for this particular shed construction. Is that correct? Okay. So Ron, do you, well, since we have this all together, let's provide the public, and we have an application, let's provide the public with an opportunity to comment. I'd like to make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any comments from the public?
I'd like to speak again.
Yes, go ahead.
As a neighbor, not as a member of the board. And Ron has pretty much run through most of this, and the photos show that the Dempseys have put a great deal of thought into the location of this shed, so as to minimize the impact on the property. Absolutely not visible from the neighbors, not visible from the road. I'm not even sure if it would be visible to a visitor going up the driveway unless they are looking to the right instead of looking straight ahead. So it is really an ideal setting for this shed. It offers screening, natural screening, no upset of the terrain. And I think it's a good selection, and it's very much in keeping with people who wish to keep the land as natural and pristine as possible.
Excellent, thank you very much. Any other comments from the public?
I'd just like to say that that sounds a lot like the letter I wrote, and I'm in total agreement with Mr. Calogero.
Great. Excellent, excellent. Okay, any further comments?
Just so you know, this is Ken Dempsey. I did get a letter from my neighbor across the street, Vincent Tian, and he has no issue with it at all. He wishes me luck.
Great, thank you. Okay, Ron, are you up for crafting?
We close the public.
Oh, thank you. I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Thank you, Arthur. For crafting a motion essentially stating, and we'll work together with you on it unless you've been working on it while we've been talking, essentially stating that there is not a area variance required for this particular shed construction.
So I would suggest that, a motion that reads along the lines of, after review of the information submitted by the Dempseys and the planning board, it is the collective opinion of the members of the zoning board of appeals that section 250-22A3 would not be applicable in this case, and no variance is in fact required.
You want to point out because of the distance of the proposed location?
Yeah, let's.
We could certainly add that.
I mean, I guess I might just, I do think that section 250-22A3 is actually applicable. It's that, but that under that section, no area variance is required since the location of the structure is greater than the least restrictive of the two requirements, something like that.
Yes, whichever is less restrictive.
Okay, let's just work, maybe take a minute to see what we can craft here. I'm looking to put this together.
Can you get a second first?
What was that?
I'll second the motion.
Okay.
I didn't actually hear it presented as a motion.
Yeah, we're just kind of discussing it. We haven't
I thought
presented it.
you did the motion. Okay.
Yeah, we haven't gotten to the motion yet.
Needs a couple of words to make it a motion at the
Yeah,
beginning. It's all sounded good.
Okay.
Joseph, you're gonna read what you have, or would you prefer I give it another crack here?
you can give it another crack while I'm putting this together. We have, again, we're kind of creating it. Once we feel confident in it, then we'll create it as a, and we'll
Yeah, put my
state it as
glasses
a
back
motion.
on to read my writing here.
Yeah.
So I would motion that after review of the information submitted by the Dempseys and the Town of Clinton Planning Board, it is the determination of the Town of Clinton ZBA that after a review of section 250-22A3, with respect to the area variance application, we find that a variance is not required in this situation.
Just to critique a bit, I think you shouldn't have the motion saying what we have to vote on. Basically, if you move that the section does not apply, and we can vote on that movement, but twice in what you read, you indicated that we were already going in a direction. So we're voting on something that we've already agreed to, which doesn't seem quite right.
Maybe I misunderstood. I thought we discussed that 250-22 was applicable.
I think you making the motion, you would make the motion that I move that section 250, whatever, is not applicable for the following reasons. And for those reasons, a variance is not required. And then we vote to affirm or not affirm the motion. Don't put the opinion in the motion that we all are assuming we're going to do anyway.
So let's start with, be it resolved that the Town of Clinton Zoning Board of Appeals has determined that an area variance is not necessary with the following findings. You want to, because we're typically making a positive recommendation.
So that isn't stated as a motion. It's you want to resolve as if it's legislation. We can do it that way. I'm not too worried about doing it that way, but if you're going to make a motion, it's to do X, Y, and Z, and then we either vote to do that or vote not to do that. Vote to uphold the variance or say that the motion that the variance is not required. Tricky.
Can I suggest something? Why can't you just make it simple that a variance is not required due to the verbiage of section 22A3 that the proposed location is less restrictive?
So the zoning board of appeals makes a motion that a variance is not required
due to that section less restrictive.
Yes, and we vote yes or no on that.
Yeah.
Right, we can have the verbiage here. Let me again just kind of read this. Be it resolved that the Town of Clinton Zoning Board of Appeals has determined that an area variance is not required for Kenneth and Christine Dempsey on property located at 1074 Bulls Head Road, Clinton Corners, New York, tax grid number, so forth, in an AR5 zoning district with the following findings. And this is the comment that we just made. Section 250-22A3 restricts the location of an accessory structure, A, closer to the front of the street than the principal building, or B, within the front yard setback, whichever is less restrictive. In this case, since the 100-foot front yard setback is the least restrictive metric, and area variance is not required.
The proposed location is less restrictive.
The accessory structure will be located 346 feet from the property,
From the front of the
thus
property.
not requiring an area variance. Or thus an area variance is not required. Okay, how did that kind of sound?
Close. Read it
All
again.
right. So now I am going to read it as a motion. When I'm done, I'll need someone to second it. Okay. Be it resolved that the Town of Clinton Zoning Board of Appeals has determined that an area variance is not required for Kenneth and Christine Dempsey on property located at 1074 Bulls Head Road, Clinton Corners, New York, tax grid number 6569-00-122449 in an AR5 district with the following findings. 1. Section 250-22A3 restricts the location of accessory structures, A, closer to the front street than the principal building, or B, within the front yard setback, whichever is less restrictive. In this case, since the 100-foot front yard setback is less restrictive, is the less restrictive method and metric, and the accessory structure will be located 346 feet from the front of the property, an area variance is not required. Second for discussion.
Second.
Okay,
Not a motion.
what's that?
Not a motion, it's a resolution.
Okay,
Just say, I move that.
okay,
Yeah,
good point. Thank you, Arthur. I move. Amend the first part to I move.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah. A member of the board has moved all of that. That it's,
Okay.
that a variance is not required for these reasons.
right.
And then that motion can be voted on. I will second the motion.
Okay. Great. Do we need me to read it again? Are we good with it?
No, I'm going to assume that Arlene has got this all under control.
Yes, very good, Art. Good point.
All right, Arlene, do you have it, or do you want me to email this to you when we're done?
Is that?
I said, are you good with it all, or do you want me to email it to you when we're done?
Okay.
This
All
one
right.
You could
Okay.
really scrap the good language. You could really digest it later. So give it to me later.
All right, sounds good, sounds good. All right, so with that, again, the amendment to the first part, which is I move that the Town of Clinton Zoning Board of Appeals, and so on, just like I had read it. Your vote, Charles,
Aye.
Norma. Did we lose Norma?
Aye.
Thank you. Ron?
Aye, and thank you.
Arthur? Russell?
Enthusiastic, aye.
All right, all right, great. All right, your
You're clear.
variance has kind of been null and void, but we have a good motion here that will allow you to proceed with the construction of your building.
You
And
need a building permit.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So the next step is
People,
going
they
to be
think
talk
that-
to Arlene so that she can help you with the necessary steps to get your building permit to build your building.
Yes, you have to
Great.
make sure, you know, sometimes when some people, they think that once they get the variance, that's a go signal. They still have to file a permit.
Okay. I put a permit application in already, didn't I?
Oh, no, no, I know. We still have to approve it and issue it.
Okay, all right. Just checking.
We just, all right. All right, well, thank you very much. Appreciate your patience with us as we've gone through this process.
Thank you.
And
Thank you very much.
yeah, certainly, certainly.
And sorry for all the delay that this undoubtedly caused you.
Okay, we do it the right way. I just want to do it, right time, right the first time. So,
We appreciate that, Mr.
Look
Brooks.
at it this way. It's going to be black and white, just like John was saying. So you have that note in the future when you need it and anybody question you.
right,
That's excellent.
that's exactly it, Arlie. Thank you.
Okay,
right.
minutes. Do we have
Okay.
approval of minutes, John?
Meeting next time.
All right, bye-bye.
All right,
Take
see you
care.
later.
Thank you.
Let's have a discussion about recusal. I thought the town attorney going back said, if we have to recuse, it's either you get out of the room or you don't say anything. You can't make a comment. Russ, I know you're a judge, but that's what I remember about recusal.
Okay, so is that, Arlene, can you say that again?
Do you remember recusal? When you recuse, I remember going back, the town attorney said, if it's gonna interfere your judgment or anything with the case, let's say you're a friend, you know them or whatever, and you have to recuse yourself, technically you have to leave the room or don't say anything.
Although I would expect that during the public comment period, you could introduce yourself as a member of the public.
Yes, that's different. But the way we did it today, like Russ will give a comment and all that kind of stuff. Technically, you're not supposed to do that.
One further comment. My understanding, in addition to all that, was that you need only recuse yourself if you feel you cannot make a
Yes. Good decision.
unbiased opinion.
Or, yeah, I mean, yes to that.
It's kind of hard in a small town with that.
Right, or
You don't know each
it's certainly understanding that it's understandable if you want to recuse yourself, if you think you might, create hard feelings or something, even though it might be your neighbor, it might be your best friend, and you feel like you can give total and impartial judgment, but you think, rather than maybe creating something, I'll just, recuse myself to not muddy the water.
Yeah, clarify that it's not just because you know somebody,
Right.
Right.
Yeah, but I think that if you, as I said, Steve and I are commissioners, somebody watching this, suppose it had been some people opposed to it, they would say, well, these guys work together and he's got like an in on the inside. So I think that if it's a question, as they used to say in the judge's office, to avoid the appearance of impropriety,
Yeah.
I recuse myself.
I agree with you, Russ. I think you were right to do that, but I also don't think you should be speaking during the board discussion time.
Well, I thought we could speak at
You
public.
speak in the public portion.
Okay, well, I made a mistake then when I was talking, so.
No, it's okay.
All right.
Public hearing, you
I
can't.
can beat you with a wet noodle.
Yeah,
While we're on this subject, I actually did talk to the town attorney about this with a certain case on Deer Ridge Road.
Charlie, we're on record, Charlie.
And he assured me that I had no conflict of interest, so.
Okay. Oh, okay, that's right. I remember.
I didn't interject about the no storage in the side yard with Steve. I didn't want to jump in on that. I was waiting to see if anybody mentioned it because, we can get as much as hanging a ladder on the garage and all that sort of stuff. So
But he's not within the setback, so it shouldn't be a problem.
the garage will be in the setback. And
Which one are we talking about?
First one, Porcelain.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
And so I could have spoken in public session, or I could have addressed it after the motion had been voted on theoretically, but I thought now's the time to
A couple of times we have not addressed that because it's in our regulations.
Yeah.
And
It's,
we left it out on
usually we mention it just as a FYI.
Remind them.
Now, the fire district will be spending money, and neither Steve nor I should have somebody saying, "Oh, but you're trading favors." So,
Sounds good. Sounds good. Okay, do we have minutes, Arlene?
I said to you, it needs tweaking. It needs I have to finalize it, so I'll do it next week.
It's
next
just
time.
on the agenda, so that's fine.
Can I
Alright.
just say, ag events, please, the public hearing is on Tuesdays, because once it becomes a law, it's a law. So I think they're ready to pass that. Public hearing is on Tuesday. It's via Zoom, so you could join. I'll send you.
short-term rental,
What's that?
short-term rental.
No, that's done already.
Oh, okay.
No, this is on the agricultural event centers and stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've got a
The events law, the ag events.
Charlie. Look at your screen, Charlie.
Well, no, all the documents are over on this screen. I have 3 screens in front of me, actually.
After the meeting, if you look wide enough awake, I can call you.
Okay, sure, yeah. No, I took a nap before the meeting, so yes, I'll be awake.
I've got plenty. It's only been an hour. I mean, we don't know what to do with ourselves. Arlene, can you email me the planning board recommendation for Dempsey?
All right. The Word format.
Yep, in Word.
And I have a question, not to be a pain, but either Arlene or Joe, I'd love to have a copy of that motion we did so I can attach it to this for future reference. The one about the Dempsey not needing the variance. So she can just email me the decision. I can put it with this.
Yep. All right. Any other further discussion? I'd like to make a motion to.
Arlene, if I go to look at property records, I don't see variances included ever particularly. I don't know where people are alerted that there are variances.
They're not gonna, I mean, the property record is the assessor's record. They don't have anything to do with it. It's gotta be on my building IPS. So
Okay.
it's not something like everybody could just see it.
Okay. I was just curious. Thank you.
All right. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn this Town of Clinton Zoning Board of Appeals meeting.
Second it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so
I'll
moved.
see you next year.
Yes.
Next year,
Yes.
2021.
Merry Christmas.